Welcome to Believe in Colts, where Lawrence Owen and DQwell Jackson brings you everything about the shoe.
What's going on, Colts Nation? Here we are live. Lawrence Owen, DQwell Jackson, Believe in Colts, and we are here to talk about this upcoming game with the San Francisco 49ers. How have you been, DQwell?
I've been good. I can't complain. You know, God is good. I woke up today breathing. Let's talk some ball. I'm ready to go.
I feel the same way every time. I'm like, how are you doing? Well, I woke up. That's a good start, right?
That's right. As long as we're doing that, all else is easy.
Exactly. Man, so a lot of news has happened since the last we talked on Monday with the Indianapolis Colts. We'll go ahead and drop the big one with Julian Blackmon, suffering an Achilles tear in practice yesterday at the end of practice. Man, that's got to be that's devastating, obviously, for the team because Blackmon has really been showing up this season. But for the team that we've already seen, when you got to have backups in that they're not performing nearly as well as the starters have been this year when the backups come in, and now you're going to have a backup full-time the rest of the year sitting there at free safety. What's that going to be like for the team?
Man, it's just, this team I feel like is – they've just been injury riddled, and this is part of what we've come to getting used to. What this is the 2021 Colts. They can't catch a break. Every week, the last 2 weeks, you look at how they played the game of football, and they offensively we've gotten better. Carson Wentz has been able to open things up offensively. T.Y. Hilton comes back, and now it's a 50-50 chance he may play. This has been like playing musical chairs for the Colts. It's like next man up. So I think this team has become used to dealing with this. Unfortunately, Julian Blackmon played a huge part of this defense this year, and he was coming to his own. He took over from Malik Hooker, and he was doing a fantastic job on the back end. Now, we bring in two guys off the street, basically. We cut Jacoby Eason, and we bring in two guys off the street, Denard and Jones. Now, they are experienced guys, but they haven't played with this group of guys, and they don't know the system. So this is going to be, learn on the fly type of deal. Unfortunately, it comes at a tough time where the Colts have finally been able to put a win on the column. And now you face a 49ers team that is, if you don't bring your A game, this game could get very ugly very soon.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of which, that's awesome that you brought that up because Sharday Loading in the chat straight up, first thing out of their mouth, does Josh Jones play tomorrow in replacement of that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they didn't sign him just to sit on the bench and watch. So at some point, to some capacity, he's going to be in. And if you're the opposing team, if you're scouting, our defense, when he's in the game, there's nothing exotic that's going to be run. He doesn't know the blitz package. He doesn't know the 2-minute package. He doesn't know the 4-minute package. He knows how to play base defense. And that's why they probably went out and signed some veteran guys who can somewhat understand what Flus wants to call defensively. Now, again, we got to be patient because we can't expect these guys to come in and just make plays. But it's going to be a very vanilla game plan if we see those guys on the field, and I'm quite sure we are going to see them at some point.
If you got a couple backups, especially guys that ain't, that haven't been on your team, like you say, know the playbook, understand the other guys, would it be safer just to make sure that they are consistently, playing the two deep and making sure, your number one job is to make sure there's nothing over the top, or do you bring them in on blitz packages and things like that as well?
Well, if I'm a coordinator, if I'm Flus right now, I think about giving both of these guys a package, right? Here's the plays that we're going to call when you're in the game. Flus is experienced enough to realize, okay, he's going to get a warning from his defensive backs coach, hey, Jones is in the game. And now he's going to go to his play sheet with Jones in the game. So he's going to give him probably a handful of blitzes, a handful of coverages, which every player in the secondary can play. However, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself to where, as I spoke earlier, you don't want to have him in the game and not be able to run any exotic pressures, because if I understand it and we all understand it, the quarterback's going to understand it, and the offensive coach, Kyle Shanahan, is going to understand it, and he's going to manipulate it. So you don't want to play with your hands behind your back. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they implement him and what his role will be to help this football team, because they can't afford any more injuries. This is the hand that was dealt to the Colts, and right now, the good thing about the Colts defense right now is they've been able to generate a lot of turnovers. I believe they're fourth in the league with 12 turnovers in, the first quarter heading into the second quarter of the season. So that's one thing to hang your hat on. And hopefully these guys can just play loose and play with some freedom somewhat. And, you're going to have a small sample size of plays for each one of these guys. I've been a part of it far too long. When I was in Cleveland, we had guys coming and going. So I, as a signal caller, this is some of the things that I had to deal with in terms of new guy coming in. Okay, this is what we run. You're going to have your meetings with your position coach, your defensive coordinator, just to put these guys at ease of saying, hey, listen, we're not going to throw anything at you that we hadn't gone over prior in the week. And so it's unfortunate, but these guys are pros. These guys understand their roles, and if they want to hang around here and make some plays and earn a living, this is what you have to do. This is part of the NFL. This is part of maturing, because guys get injured, and this is an opportunity for one of these guys to step up and hopefully, surprise us all.
Absolutely. I think yesterday, Fred Warner had a press conference for the 49ers. I'm sure you know who Fred Warner is. The linebacker over there, and he was asked a specific question of was there a guy, what'd you think of Jonathan Taylor? And he brought up this story about, when he came out into the combine and everybody was asking him, every team that interviewed him asked him who was the toughest player you ever came against.
That's the number one question you get asked.
And his answer was Jonathan Taylor. And
wow.
it was because I guess he ran like 230 yards against Fred Warner and his team when Jonathan Taylor was a rookie, and he was just coming, he was a senior at the time. So for a rookie to make that kind of an impact, and for him to still go, yeah, he's a good player, that's a big sign. Can the Colts use that? Do you think that's something, where he's got a ton of respect for Jonathan Taylor? Can the Colts use that in a way to because obviously it might be raining, from what the weather looks like. Could they end up using that situation to kind of use him as a decoy at times, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that the game is all about matchups. That this is, and you alluded to it, there's probably a 90% chance, I read somewhere there's a 90% chance that there's going to be a messy, rainy game between the hours of the game Sunday night. So, yeah, you have to – this is a game where you got to go back to your drawing board, look at your scheme, look at who your opponent is, and look at matchups. And Jonathan Taylor is going to be a mismatch more times than not, week in and week out, because of his versatility out of the backfield, catching the football. We've witnessed a few weeks ago of him taking a screenplay over 60 some odd yards for a touchdown. Last week, again, an 83-yard, run play. So he's more than capable of gaining that respect from the opponents. This is just one of them. I'm sure that entire 49ers defense has been made aware how versatile this guy is, because right now, between you and I, he is the drive starter for this offense. Mm-hmm. When he's rolling, when he's cooking, now Nyheim Hines gets going. Now Marlon Mack can get in the mix. And now you look at Carson Wentz from the quarterback position, not throwing the ball 40 times. He's throwing the ball efficiently for 20 attempts. And anytime we can reduce those attempts and keep it around that 20, 25 mark, that tells me we're running the football effectively, and Jonathan Taylor is making a stamp on this football game.
Absolutely. You brought up Marlon Mack, and something else we discussed before we came on was it was reported that San Francisco's one of the teams that are interested in a trade for Marlon Mack.
Let him cook.
Would you be using Marlon Mack against San Francisco tonight?
Absolutely. If everyone has to know, if you want to basically raise his value, you let this guy handle the football. You let him touch the football more than 5 or 6 touches. You can't let him know, obviously, but I'm sure Marlon Mack, he's reading the clippings, the same clippings we're reading. So he understands, given the opportunity, he's going to try to go out here and make this team trade for him and put him in a better situation, because the 49ers, this is something they've dealt with in the running back, in the backfield. They don't have a crowded backfield like the Colts. They need a guy that can solidify who's the guy. Marlon Mack, a hungry Marlon Mack, who's shown before the arrival of Jonathan Taylor that he was a capable guy to get it done. So they need a guy. So why not feed him the ball, put him on display, let John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan look at the potential talent that they could potentially pick up moving forward. And especially so if we have a messy, the weather isn't ideal. So this is a great opportunity for Marlon Mack. I'm sure Marlon Mack understands it. I'm sure everyone's paying close attention to everyone, because the trade deadline is coming up pretty soon, and teams are going to try to position themselves to better their football team, especially so both of these teams who have been riddled with injuries on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. I think so as well. And speaking of injuries, we're getting some guys back. The report is that, Quinton Nelson now is out there practicing. You got Braden Smith. You got Braden Smith out there doing individual drills, which is nice to hear. And we got a guy who was on the PUP list, Deo Odangbo, that second round defensive end. Now, I understand the offensive players, especially the offensive line guys. If it's going to be raining, we need them drastically because they're going to be needed in the run game.
Yes.
How important would it be to get one, if not both of these guys on the offensive line, and possibly have a fully healthy offensive line against San Francisco's front seven?
Right. And that's a great point, because that is going to be the difference of this football game, whether who we think will have the advantage or not. Getting a guy like Quinton Nelson back, getting some rotational guys back on the offensive line for the Colts, especially so when the weather is not supposed to be ideal and muddy and raining and all this other stuff. You need your front seven to be in sync and play with some continuity. And because, quite frankly, no one wants to throw the football, 35, 40 times with a slippery football. And, you look at our receiving core, I said earlier, we don't know if T.Y. Hilton is going to play. He made the first catch of last game against the Texans, showed up 4 receptions for 80 yards. So he anytime he steps on the field, he's an asset. But this type of game, to get your horses back, I mean, that gives the entire team just a sigh of relief, because what Quinton Nelson brings, his energy, his leadership, his toughness, and the ability to run the football behind him will give you just instant credibility and just confidence to run the football if need be. And with Carson Wentz, I know he's more athletic than most people give him credit for, but he's a tough guy who stands in the pocket, and you give him one more asset to help to give him confidence to stand up right and throw the football down the field. The advantage goes to the Colts offense.
I believe so too. Hey, I'm going to take this moment just to say, hey guys, if you're watching this, please smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and tag that notification bell so that you're notified next time we go live. My co-host on my other channel just dropped $1 in the tip jar, so I really appreciate that. Hey guys, if you want to make sure your questions or comments wants to be shown, make sure you use the link that is in the description down here. It says tip, but your stuff will definitely come up. And he pops up here and asks a really good question. And that question, I don't know if anyone can see it, but is film study more important for the D due to a sloppy field? Kind of knowing where the D is going ahead of time?
I think it's all equally important. I think more importantly, when you have a sloppy field, it's your shoes. It's going to be your shoes, your spikes. And any guy in the league who will tell you I had the experience of playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers twice a year in Cleveland for 8 years. That was the number one issue every year because most players, depending on your position, I can only speak for the linebackers. We hate those long spikes that every trainer wants you to use when the field is sloppy and it's muddy and it's not ideal situations. Your footing is going to be everything because you're going to see a lot of slips. You got to play with the game is going to slow down. You got to play with great leverage. You have to bend your knees, and it's an adjustment. The first quarter or so will be an adjustment of just how to keep your footing and how to place yourself because you're used to the game being played at a certain speed. When that's compromised, when the field is compromised, you have to adjust. And some people adjust better than others. For me, it was the work. My feet, it just killed my feet to wear these extremely long spikes just to get footing. And that's, you tend to see a lot of, rolled ankles because the spikes are so long, it doesn't give. So to answer the question, I think, film study is important. I don't think it sways one way or the other. I think it's important regardless to be your preparedness is everything. If you don't know, if you don't have any idea about the opponent's tendencies every snap based on the down and distance, based on the situation of the game, then you're lost. You're not giving yourself a chance to be successful. So, it does make the game a lot easier though, Lawrence. I can tell you that from a defensive standpoint, the offenses aren't going to run. I don't want to say not going to run a lot of motions, but things tend to be more simplified when the rain and, inclement weather happens because now the coordinator's looking at his play sheet. Well, this reverse double pass or Philly special or whatever, we may not run that because the ball is slippery, the ground is slippery. This may backfire on me. So coordinators tend to be a little bit more hesitant when it comes to exotic plays. But, as the game unfolds and as things kind of show themselves in terms of what plays work and what plays aren't working, you tend to see a little bit more of a risk down the road. But early on, this is going to be an ugly game. This isn't going to be a pretty game at all. This is going to be a 9-on-7, bring your big boy type of pads, traditional runs, the games that I enjoyed those because I didn't have to worry about the ball going over my head. I could just play downhill and make some plays. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this game unfolds. Jimmy G, will Jimmy G be full strength? How will that O-line protect them? Because this game is about the front seven, offensive line versus defensive line versus our running backs and their linebackers and vice versa. This is what I'm looking forward to this game on Sunday night.
Absolutely, I am too. Very exciting. It's a measuring stick for the Colts. It's definitely a measuring stick.
Because we've spoke about it before, where we feel like this team could easily have more wins than losses. The Rams game, the Seattle game, and you look at the 49ers. Well, their 2 wins have been against opponents that aren't playoff caliber teams. They've lost to some teams that were playoff caliber teams last year. So both of these teams are in a similar space. They need to go out and prove they can beat a decent team. And I really think the 49ers are a team that is could be overlooked for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if they're going to be overlooked too much by certain players on the team. There is a specific defensive tackle on the Indianapolis Colts that's going to walk into this game and have something to prove.
Buddy.
What are you expecting from DeForest Buckner in this game?
All out energy to get back on track. He cannot wait. I don't care how much guys downplay playing your previous team, doesn't matter, or it's just another game. That's BS. I can tell you right now, that's BS. You want to win that game more than any game you've played thus far because you want to make them realize, I can still play this game, that I'm not trash, that I'm just as good as you thought I was early in my career. So he's definitely going to, I'm quite sure, who was it? So Chuck Pagano would do this, right? We had our solidified captains and, based on who we were playing weekly, It was brilliant. I mean, it's so simple, but it's brilliant. You'll look at the roster. Okay, oh, DQwell played in Cleveland. Oh, he's going to be the captain for this, and it gives guys extra motivation to go out there and play a little, 2% better, So he's definitely getting up for this game. There's no doubt in my mind. He's marked this one on his calendar when the schedules came out because, he had a great career there. He had a really great career there.
Yeah, I mean, after his rookie contract was over, they traded him because they didn't think that they wanted to pay $21 million for a defensive tackle. Then they go off and sign the guy that they had a couple years later, to an $18 million contract. So they didn't want to pay that extra $3 million over the other guy to keep Buckner. And Buckner did say in a press conference, I think 2 or 3 days ago, when asked about that, he said, "This is personal for me.
Absolutely,
this is absolutely personal."
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't take it personal? when the Browns released me, and I had a chance to play back in Cleveland and with the Colts. Oh, and at the time it was myself and Mike Adams. We were both had spent time in Cleveland, and we knew all the people there. So it felt so good to win in the fashion the way we did. It came down to the last drive basically, and they turned the ball over, and Mike Adams got the interception. So it's always really good to win at your beat your former team. Tell you that, especially when they just threw you away. That's what we feel like.
So Dio Odangbo, the defensive, I'm gonna call him a defensive lineman because I have no idea where he's gonna play on that line. He's played everywhere in college. Very, very long, athletic, kind of reminds you a little of a DeForest Buckner in a way in his physical stature and things of that nature. But again, coming off an Achilles, he's a rookie, and has yet to even take a snap of practice yet. Even though he's back, how long would you expect before we might even see him?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't practiced yet. It's a good sign that he's been activated early in the season, going into the second quarter of the season. There's 17 weeks, so I'm thinking it'll take him probably 3 weeks to really get in game shape, practice shape, before they start to throw him out there. And that I'm not claiming to be a doctor. I don't know, I've never had an Achilles tear, but to be on the safe side, if you haven't run, we don't know. I don't know the detail, the very small details of what has he been doing, before he was activated. Has he been sprinting? Has he been running? Has he been cutting? Because you can do all of those things, but when you line up against someone and you're getting ready to blitz, that adrenaline gives you an extra boost of energy, something that you hadn't practiced. You can't practice that, and you need to trust that Achilles. That is a big. We spoke offline before we started here. That Achilles tear, man, that is a big injury to come back from, and not only because it's your ankles, it's your Achilles, but the mental side of it. Can you push off of it without popping it? And you got to get over that mental hurdle. So in my estimation, I think about 3 or 4 weeks before we actually see him back on the field, moving and contributing, because God knows the Colts can use any more pass rushers to create havoc and play behind the line of scrimmage. And he's a guy that they expect a lot from him, and hopefully we'll see him sooner than later. Hopefully I'm wrong and we see him a lot sooner.
Yeah, I was out, believe it or not, when I did my live stream yesterday, I was talking the same thing. I was like, you know what, when he, comes back, I figure it'd probably take about a month, before we saw him on the field. Because, like I said, he's a rookie. He has not taken a snap of practice, let alone,
man, he's so far behind. He's only taking mental reps, walk-through reps, nothing high tempo, when motions move, how the coverage changes, and he hasn't gone through any of it. So to throw him out there on the field and say, hey, we expect you to pick this all up when it's real time, when every game matters, every play matters, every snap, every series, and especially for this football team, to dig themselves out of this hole, you're taking a huge risk of throwing them out here, throwing them on the field too early. So I figured they would take their time to make sure they're comfortable and give him a small sample size, small menu of plays, to make him feel confident so you can build off of that.
Yeah. We're definitely going to need him because we have had our problems on the D line when it comes to pass rushers, not just not being able to get to the quarterback and perform sacks, but injuries as well. Like right now, two of our more important guys, Kwity Paye and Kamoko Toure, are dealing with injuries. And if we can't, we need as many as we can out there healthy and ready to go. And man, the Colts, you mentioned
they need to just have a walkthrough practice every week from here on out just to save the guys' legs, because you can't afford to keep – it's a part of the game. We all know that. But if you're going to have a chance, and if I'm Frank Reich, listen, I'm always saying anytime I was a player, I always thought this year was the year I was potentially going to get released. So I got to do what's best for myself. And in Frank Reich's case, you got to do what's best for your team. You need your guys healthy. If you can't hit or tackle or block someone right now without pads, then you don't deserve to get a check, collect a check, and be on this football team. Take the pads off. I would legit have a walkthrough practice where my guys aren't, because you can't afford to, Julian Blackman, tears his Achilles at practice. I get it, things happen, but try it for a week or two and see how motivated those guys will be to go out and run and hit on Sunday. I promise you, it works. A lot of coaches are afraid to do it, but when you do it, the veterans kind of take over at this point and let the young guys know, hey, listen, this guy's throwing us a major bone. We need to make sure we go out here and play our tails off and play like our butts on fire just so we can repeat this cycle, taking these pads off. But you gotta find a way. I feel bad for these guys at times, but it's a part of the game.
There's a bunch of good questions in the chat right now, but I've got one more thing I want to bring up before I get into the chat itself, and that is that Frank Reich was asked, how hard they practice, right?
Mm.
And he says that in regular season, the practice isn't nearly as physical, right, as it is, like, say, in training camp. In training camp, they say, man, you go really hard and all out, and
right.
And he just to get into football, kind of shock your system back into playing.
It's necessary.
Yeah, and he said that. And I find it funny. He says that almost every fight that has happened over the last few years while he was coach, when it was between the Colts and the visiting team that they were practicing with, whether it was like the Browns last year or the Panthers this year, all those fights that happened was because the Colts were there scrapping for the football every 5 seconds, and they took it personally, right?
Right.
Right. Is that something that in your experience, I don't know.
Yeah, he's exactly right. He's exactly right. Because here's the thing: in training camp, you're asking for trouble when you bring in another team to training camp, because you know this better than most people. You're away from your families. You don't have your wife with you. You're around all these guys, all this testosterone all day, the same smells, the same crappy food. They're literally intentionally trying to mess with you mentally. And then you got to go out here and practice against your guys, and it's hot. It's the middle of August, and you have on all these pads, and you love it, but you hate it at the same time. But then you decide to bring a team into this facility when I'm on edge already. You can almost guarantee it's going to happen every single time. And the way the Colts go after the football, I can see how that can get annoying as hell, during training camp, and how it would spew a fight. So yes, and I thought you were going to say this. Most of the fights that I've ever witnessed or been a part of myself, whether it be in training camp or the regular season, I've been in full pads. And when the pads are off, the energy goes down a bit. your focus kind of, you're more playing the game above the shoulders, and now you can focus on actually your job and what you're supposed to do and what a coach wants to get from you based on the call. So that's funny, man. Training camp, I hated training camp. I absolutely despise it.
Mm-hmm.
But training camp nowadays is a lot easier than what it was in the past. But training camp is still training camp, man. It's still brutal. It's still tough on your body, mentally and physically draining. And yeah, you can't avoid the fights. A bunch of guys, 60 guys every single day. It's bound to happen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you get under, something's gonna happen at some point in any practice where, one guy's not necessarily meaning to be disrespectful to the other guy, but the other guy might take it that way. You know what I mean?
And every guy on the team is propped differently.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. There was a coach named Pep Hamilton, and
mm-hmm.
he said some words. So before practice, we had a time, a horn that would go off that would tell everyone it's practice time, get in your stretch lines. And there was some rookies, undrafted rookies, kind of lagging. It became a routine. They were lagging. They were always last to come out of the building. You would always see them running to the stretch line. Well, you have scouts, coaches, everyone's paying attention and watching your habits around the building. So Pep Hamilton, he said some words to me that I'll never forget. He told these guys to afford to be who you can afford to be. And that speaks volumes in an NFL locker room, because the Andrew Luck, you can get away with, you get a pass. The last guy on the totem pole, you can't afford to be out here, getting in trouble, being late. But to your point about the whole fighting deal, guys in training camp, guys are trying to make the team, and you can't. And that's where a lot of the extra energy comes from, because that guy, I'm gonna get a little deep on you for a second. All right. That guy may have a family, kids, and he's bounced around from team to team, and he's trying to, sink his teeth into this organization. And he may be up against a guy like myself who was, a starter, and I may not necessarily wanted to. It was a bad day for me. So, it all depends on how you're positioned within an organization, with the team. And I've always, understood when guys that are trying to make the team are all out, and that's how you play the game, So that's my little caveat of information. Right?
I absolutely do not see how a UDFA would even allow himself to be lagging in any aspect of practice or anything like that, because you would think I got to show even more, to get on this team, and don't give them anything bad to look at. I got another tip by my co-host from my other show. Man, you are all over it today, my guy. Let's see here. Let me bring up mine. Is there anything the secondary can do to gain advantage in bad weather they shouldn't do in normal conditions, like, playing tighter to the line of scrimmage or closer to your man, things of that nature?
That's a good question. I may have to think about that for a second. So anything the secondary can do to gain advantage in bad weather. I mean, film study, we talked about the film study earlier. That's a given. I would think because the game slows down a bit, you're able to take a little bit more chances. I would definitely, if you're a guy that doesn't necessarily jump routes and kind of plays the call and not really allows his instincts to really take over, you can get away with it in bad weather, because again, everyone slips, everyone's not running the most precise routes. Excuse me, the ball is slippery. You have a lot of different things that are going on, things that are going on that are out of your control. So I would say for a defensive back, yeah, take some more chances, jumping routes and because the game slows down. If you're a guy that isn't the blazer, now you're able to. The game makes it easier for those. It's harder for the fast guys, and it makes it easier for the guys that's not so fast. It's an even playing field, so it allows you to be in position to make more plays. But that's a good question. I may have to take more time to think about that later. But that's what pops in my head at this moment.
Okay. Sade Loading asked a question earlier, and then they repeated the question after I said I was going to get to. I was actually going to get to your stuff, Sade. I just, was in the process of doing other stuff. They ask, will we see? Now, they mentioned Kenny Moore because last year and the year before, Kenny Moore was used on a lot of nickel blitzes, and he was very, very effective at it. But do you think this is a type of game that you could see something like that happen with a muddy field and stuff like that?
Absolutely. This is a game where, because we're running. If things, hold to be true with the weather being what it's intended to be, you see a lot of you're going to see a lot of condensed formations, because you want to bring bigger personnel in to run the football. And, a formation that most people will see is a double wing and a slot backside. Well, you have a guy like Kenny Moore in the slot, he's a really good blitz off the edge. That protects you on the backside of an open run game. So, I think he's a really solid tackler. He's a really good blitz off the edge. So, yes, that's one of the recipes of, if you're going to blitz in that bad weather and the team is just committed to running the football, you bring an extra guy off the edge, a guy that's pretty athletic that can, allow everything to be played inside of him, not let things cross his face and get outside the outside of him, lose outside leverage. So yes, that is actually a really good question.
Awesome. Brandon Wood has a question as well in here. Popped up a little bit earlier. It says, when it comes to playing former teams, how much will this current defense be in DeForest Buckner's ear asking about Jimmy G and his tendencies and stuff like that walking into this game?
Another great question. I'm sure not only are the defensive players in his ear, but the offensive coaches, they want to know what style of defense. They want to know whatever they can about the 49ers defense, certain tendencies from D Ford and Bosa and all these different guys. So he has been an asset this week, I'm sure, in both coordinators' offices. So yeah, he's a huge. Anytime you have a veteran guy who spent some time with the former team, that's part of it. We want to know as much intel as possible. And he's been a huge asset this year. So that's a really great question. Really, really smart question.
Dabney Offerman also has a question. Says, can you ask DQwell to speak about a memory where you had to play in a terrible field?
Oh yeah. Oh jeez. So my rookie year, was playing in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh by far had the worst conditions. I feel like the AFC North for so many years, just around October, November, the weather was, I don't want to say the word I want to say, but it wasn't good. And the fields were just as worse. And so my rookie year, I'm playing, I believe it's the last game of the season, I want to say. And the field is just frozen, absolutely frozen. And I played with a guy in front of me by the name of Ted Washington. I don't know if you know Ted Washington, but at that point, I was a rookie, and he was in year 16 or 17. He had played with the New England Patriots for some time, and probably one of the biggest humans I've ever witnessed. And so we're playing this game, and it's probably, there was a outdoor, you can see the temperature. There was a temperature gauge outside, and it read 10 below. And, I had never played in conditions that cold and a field so sloppy. And I remember the first half, Big Ted Washington, who stood probably 6'5", 6'6", probably, I'm glad hopefully he's not listening. He's probably 400 pounds. Well, this guy, because of the conditions, play happened. I slip. He falls on my heel, and it was so cold. He falls on my heel as I'm laying flat on the ground, and that's a big guy. All of his weight just, and your toes are curled like this, and I heard, which felt like a pop, but it was so freaking cold, and the field was so muddy and icy. I just thought I had jammed my toe. So I finished the game at halftime. I go in at halftime. They shoot it up with God knows what. I finished the game. I go back to I finished the game. I'm in the showers. I'm thawing out, right? It's warm and all that good stuff. And the pain that shot through my big toe was pain I've never felt. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And it was so bad because the conditions of the field was so shitty. We get an x-ray the next day. I had broken my toe.
Oh.
Big Ted had broken because the field was so sloppy, I'm slipping all over the place. I had broken my toe. So that's one of the memories that stands out to me of the conditions being not ideal, being, really cold weather, and, playing in a place like Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh has this, you can't kick more than a 55-yard. The longest field goal ever kicked in Heinz Stadium is probably less than 55 yards because of the conditions. So that's one memory that stands out to me when you talk about just the worst game with the worst field conditions.
Russell Saylor says that I live in the San Francisco area and it's already started. It's going to be soggy mess by Sunday. Oh,
wow.
I
hated those games, man. I hated those games. Oh my God. I mean, obviously the game slows down, but you're cold. Well, luckily for the Colts, they're playing in San Francisco, so you don't have to deal with 20-degree weather or 15-degree weather. But it's still just, you're cold, it's uncomfortable, you got to focus, you got to love it, But looking back, I don't know how the heck I got through it, man, because it's just so uncomfortable. And your shoes are wet, everything is soggy, and you got to go out here and play a game and compete at the highest level.
Absolutely. Guys, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, tag that notification bell so that you are notified next time we go live or upload a video. And obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, go check it out, the audio podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's called Believe in Colts. And if you're listening to this, come check us out on YouTube. You can actually see us talking instead of just hearing us occasionally.
So what do you think are some of your keys to victory for the Colts here if they're going to pull this thing out on Sunday night against the 49ers?
Man, there's some big. First off, don't let Jimmy Garoppolo's dealing with that calf injury. I would force him in that soggy weather that when it is a passing down, make him move around because, I don't want to see people get hurt, but at the same time, you're dealing with a calf. Right. It's nasty, soggy ground. That's very difficult to position your foot, and your calf will cramp up and all. Make him move around. Don't let him sit there because that'll only play in your favor. You figure the Colts are like third in the NFL in turnover differential. Where San Francisco are 30th in the NFL. Right. Their defense have only taken away 2 balls all year. 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery the entire year. So we need to find a way to get Jimmy Garoppolo, get him uncomfortable so that if he does have to throw it, he's not throwing it in a comfortable position where he might throw some picks. And obviously, use the mud and the weather to your advantage. This is a team that loves stripping the football, and I can't see a better opportunity to come out of this with multiple turnovers.
Right. So do you think Kyle Shanahan changes what he does offensively? Because he loves to obviously he likes to set up the pass through the run, and he's a moving he likes a moving quarterback, a mobile quarterback when they're rolling on all cylinders. Do you think he changes the game plan somewhat based on pretty much everything that you just laid out. Because if we see that, and I can 1,000% agree with you, he's probably thinking, yeah, this calf, we don't need him rolling out as much. We need to keep him in the pocket. But I don't think that's what Jimmy Garoppolo does best. That's not a foundational Kyle Shanahan run offense.
Yeah. Well, I got a feeling that he's probably going to use, because generally when you're playing a game, and especially at home, the home team is going to try to impose their will and their style of game that they want to play against the visiting team, right? That's their initial want to do. You never want the visiting team to dictate what you're doing, right? I mean, that's football 101. And I got a feeling that he'll have that thought process of what you just said, and have a lot of play calls and a lot of practices this week for if he has to change it at a later time through the game. This isn't working. That they came to this. The Colts came in expecting this, and that they're attacking it. We need to go to something else. I'm sure they're working on other stuff in order to be ready to change things up, because it's obvious in my opinion, I think it's obvious what both these teams need to do in this game, and you got to have something to catch the other team off guard.
Yeah, I agree. And to that point, if I'm Flus on the other end, knowing everything you just eloquently laid out in terms of the mobility of Jimmy Garoppolo, I think you break your tendency this week. We saw it a little bit last week of pressuring early, bringing some pressure early, making him feel uncomfortable. Let's see if he really trusts where he is from a physical standpoint in bad weather, with a sloppy field, with people diving at his feet. Let's really push and see if Jimmy G is ready to stand in that pocket and make and deliver these throws with pressure in his face. So I definitely see that. I see that both sides of the ball, to be quite honest. I see it on both sides of the ball because, defense, again, the game is going to slow down. And we've talked about the issues the Colts have had protecting Carson Wentz. We may get some guys back. We may not. We talked about the run game, how important that's going to be, how effective it needs to be. The Colts are coming off a huge productive day from Jonathan Taylor, 145 yards last week. But to your point, I'm going to take your point. It's not the Houston Texans anymore. This is a well-oiled machine in terms of playmakers up front in the front seven. So it's definitely the work is definitely going to be cut out for them. But I see both sides of the ball, applying pressure and breaking tendencies because of the weather, because of the game being slowed down, and you got a wet football and all these type of things. And, you look at the 49ers, Deebo Samuels, I believe he's averaged over 100 yards in every game thus far. And we're really going to have to keep an eye on him in the passing game. And something that if my memory serves me correctly, we're somewhere along the middle of the pack in terms of defending the pass. We're not great, we're not bad, but we're floating in the middle someplace. And I think that's due to the inability to rush the passer effectively and have a guy that is the leader when it comes to sacks and generating pressure. Because we know that isn't what Flus loves to do. He likes to sit back and play coverage and poke balls away and force fumbles and get our hands on some picks. But in terms of playing behind the line of scrimmage and changing the math for an offense, that's just not his tendency. But I hope he relies on it a little bit more this week.
AP's Aquatics. Appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for joining. He says, hey, DQwell, how do you feel about the Colts secondary? You just got done talking about the pass defense, and we all know it's not just the Colts front seven that's been having injuries this year. That secondary, boy, there's been times when we had no one extra to put in the game, So
from Xavier Rhodes to recently Julian Blackman to bringing Denard and Jones off the street, basically the practice squad, who will potentially have some reps, to have a small sample size of plays, to be able to help this team and give other guys a breather. They're going to be playing special team. This team has been broken many a times, but they still fight. They still play hard. Again, they're top 5 in the league of creating turnovers. So what that tells me is these guys run to the football. These guys are active with their hands, and they're trying to, make play. These are game-changing moments that for a team that's only won 2 games to lead the league in takeaways from a defensive standpoint shows you just how hard they play. Again, on a scale of 1 to 10, my confidence level with them, holding up against the pass and being able to be effective against a guy like Deebo Samuels, who's had a tremendous year thus far, is going to take a collective effort. We don't have one guy that's just, can just lock down one side of the field. It takes all 11 to play the pass. And what I mean by that is pass rush. Even if you don't get a sack, just to be able to, knockdowns, running Jimmy Garoppolo off his spot is going to take a collective effort, which I do have more confidence in as a whole, as opposed to just the secondary in general.
Yeah, it's going to be you're right. It's going to take a collective effort, and it's going to be even more of an issue because of the injuries that we have currently right now with the Indianapolis Colts and the inexperience. And I'm not necessarily saying like you were saying, it's not inexperience NFL wise. It's inexperience,
right,
with the Colts playbook and their scheme and understanding how the guys next to you play. Because you might know the scheme perfectly well. You might know the coach perfectly well. You know the playbook like the back of your hand. But if you haven't had snaps with these other guys around you, your play is going to be affected because in your mind, excuse me, you're wondering, can I trust him to be that, where he's supposed to be? How is he going to react to this specific situation? Do I need to do this? Lots of stuff creep up in a defensive back's mind in situations like that.
It's a huge what if when you've been a shoe-in start on that team and you're playing with guys that you got to think about what the names are.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on the field, it's like, you just get stuck. You don't know the guy's name. You're not familiar seeing his number. You're not familiar seeing the guy. And it's happened. It's happened to everyone before.
Mm-hmm.
And so to your point, this goes a lot deeper than just knowing the game of football. You got to build a rapport with this guy, especially on the back end. One mistake is a touchdown. If you're not in communication and in cahoots with your left corner and your right corner, you guys aren't on the same page as opposed to route concepts or whether or not the safety jumps on the route, on a dig route, and the corner replaces. All these things happen because of continuity together, and when you don't have it, man, you need to have luck on your side. You need to be able to be in the right place at the right time, get some turnovers, as I'm hopeful this team will be able to do. And hopefully someone comes alive with the footing not being as great as it would have if it was great field conditions. So hopefully, we see DeForest Buckner use that energy to come up with a big day behind the line of scrimmage and get some sacks and just pressure, and it's going to help everyone.
All right. Devin Ward has a question, and I might end up, I'll leave it as is. He says, what do you both think Wentz's ceiling will be this year, touchdown/interception wise? So I guess he's wondering what our predictions, touchdown, interception, from what we've seen from Wentz so far this year. And go ahead. I'll let you go first.
So right now, they're 2 games, and
I think he's got 9 touchdowns.
He's got 9 touchdowns, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, which is, for a guy that's been under siege, for most of the season, I think those numbers are incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And going into the second quarter of the season, heck, if we get some guys back, Quinton Nelson, and they can get a rhythm, 2 or 3 games to get in sync, and we can, you witnessed the last 2 weeks of Carson Wentz having a really effective, being effective throwing the football, getting T.Y. Hilton back. We don't know if it's a 50-50 chance he'll be back, but a lot of things you're talking about a lot of what ifs right now.
Yeah,
we got a lot of guys injured, and it's so difficult to say, well, heck, if everyone's back, then heck, yeah, I think we have more wins than losses, but it's so difficult to say at this moment, because I do question how long this O-line, if we don't get all the guys back healthy and playing together, how long Carson Wentz will last. Because that's been his Achilles heel for a very long time now, his health. And it's very difficult to nowadays in today's NFL, I'm giving him 20 touchdowns, I don't know, 5 picks, somewhere in that ballpark, but it's very hard to come up with that number at this point.
I think that the touchdowns will go up a little bit due to the first 5 games we played against some very, 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 very good teams. And also, there was health issues and, not sync with the players around him, things like that. I do believe that I think he'll push closer to 30 than 20, but still, that's fairly respectable as long as he keeps the interceptions below double digits. And you're saying around 5. I'm guessing 7 probably max. For the season. Yeah. But still, those are fair. Generally, you want your touchdown to interception ratio, at round 3 to 1 to be good. As a quarterback. Andrew Luck was not. Andrew Luck was not someone who ever had single-digit interceptions.
No, I was going to say he was a double-digit guy. He was a 10 to 12, interception 16. Type. Yeah, and he would throw for he was like a 2 to 1 ratio.
Yeah,
around that. But he took a lot of chances. His arm strength, and Carson Wentz has that what do you call it? That arm strength that is just.
The trust. He's got a trust in that
arm
strength,
he trusts his arm, and I forget, Ryan Clark made a statement on ESPN, arm arrogance. That's what it is.
Okay.
I thought it was a brilliant explanation of a guy who has the arm strength and to just have the trust and confidence he can squeeze the ball in any place that he thought he could, during the course of a game. It's that arm arrogance. I think Andrew Luck definitely had it, and Carson Wentz definitely has it. And to have 1 interception right now is incredible. With all the pressure he's been under, the ability for him to stand in the pocket, deliver throws down the field on target, knowing he's getting hit. I just cringe every time he takes there's a 5-step drop, and when I know, he's aiming downfield, he's going to get hit at some point. But, very hard to predict.
Yeah,
with this team, with all the injuries, they've had of recent,
That is true. That is true. It is difficult to predict anything because you don't even know what we're going to be expecting from Carson Wentz. What if week 17 rolls around and knock on wood, hope this don't happen, but week 15 rolls around and we're sitting there at like 5-10. And they decide to sit Wentz to save that first round pick, because we're out of the playoffs at 5-10.
Right. Or just protect him.
Yeah.
Just protect him.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, you know what? We're going to evaluate another guy. We want to see what he can do.
Yeah.
And in the same breath, it positions us for a better draft pick.
Exactly. So
that would not surprise me.
Would not surprise. Now I'm not saying that I expect that. I'm hoping for more of around week 15. I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm like, I'm thinking we could probably be maybe 9-6, 8-7, somewhere around in that vicinity. Still,
that's respectable.
Yeah, that's a respect. I get we have 4 losses right now.
Yeah,
but our offense is starting to roll. Our offense looks good. We're going to see how good they are over the next couple of weeks, especially against in this game, especially, with the
49ers. And then who's after the 49ers? The Jets, I believe.
Jets or the Titans. I can't remember.
I
think it's the Jets. Yeah, but I know we play the Titans in coming up again, so that's going to be another one.
Right. Yeah, this is going to be a huge confidence booster. Every game you win is a confidence booster, but these guys have been rolling. Carson Wentz we didn't really have to rely on his arm arrogance. I like saying that now. Last week because of the run game. And, if we feed Marlon Mack, as we talked about earlier, let him build his trade value so you get something better in return. Jonathan Taylor, he wants to, show that he wants to keep that momentum on the ground rolling. Hopefully we get Quinton Nelson back and, we got a leader and a flat out just monster on the offensive line back. That helps the confidence. So, the offense it's taken some time, which I underestimated early in the season. I thought these guys could just show up and just plug in and play and pick up where we thought they should be. But clearly it's taken a month to get in sync with the offense and receivers. And, I get it now. You don't have all your horses, out. And so you're playing with guys that you're unfamiliar with, that you didn't expect to work with this much. So it's definitely been a work in progress. From week to week, we have a different lineup. And that's extremely difficult to play, to win a game, to know, who's up and who isn't. So definitely going to be an interesting ball game.
Absolutely. Now, we're a little over an hour now, so we're going to be closing in on the end of this stream, but it's time for predictions. And the Indianapolis Colts walking into San Francisco into that possibly nasty field as 4-point underdogs. Now, as 4-point underdogs, if I remember correctly, in that situation, home teams granted 3, right? For just being home, generally. So that means on an even keel basis, sports bettors are saying the Niners are a 1-point favorite on an even keel. So curious, who you got winning and why?
I was curious to see where you were going to go with this.
You want me to? I can go first.
No, I'll go. So I feel like these teams are pretty evenly matched. I think it can go either way. And on one hand, I look at the Colts defense. I'm like, these guys with a wet football and not ideal situations, these guys are going to be all about punching that ball out. So they'll be able to get turnovers. The offense last week was clicking. Carson Wentz only threw the ball 20 times. Jonathan Taylor had a big day. Crowded back for everyone had their touches. But you're playing at home against the San Francisco 49ers. This is a very talented football team. As you mentioned, they have a slight advantage. I say it's a close football game. I think 49ers pull it off 24-21. Very close game.
I can respect that. I think you're a little on the high end on the scoring, though. I think this is going to be, as you said, an ugly game. I think there's going to be some turnovers. I think this is a game when the Colts know you're running the football, their run defense is good. Yeah. I mean, good. Yeah. And you're not going to expect. I think the Niners are going to try to run the ball a lot. I think the Colts are expecting that. Like you said, though, Shanahan's going to have to come out there and throw some curveballs out there to catch our defense off guard. And he's the kind of coach that will do that.
A lot of screens.
Yeah, definitely. But I like the Colts' chances going into San Francisco this week. Hey, I went 3 weeks earlier this year and was like, they're losing. And they did. All right. I am no longer on that train, ladies and gentlemen. I think the Colts have a real shot at beating San Francisco, even in an ugly situation, especially with the fact that we have a stacked backfield, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to see a lot of two-back formations where that RPO would be so scary in this situation where you could fake the handoff or hand it off to Jonathan Taylor up the gut and then maybe see Hines or Mack on a sweep, for an option on that. I think this is a situation where the Colts can really use that backfield to their advantage. And I think the Colts will eat a lot of clock on the ground, and I've got them winning 15-12.
Yeah, I see that. I can definitely understand that. It's definitely going to be a close football game. No, I don't think anyone, either side, no matter who wins, is going to be a 10-point favorite.
No.
I think it's going to be within a touchdown. Come down to field goal. Yeah, I'm with you on that. But Sunday night, we all get to tune in. Everyone gets up for a Sunday nighter.
Oh yeah.
I my first Sunday nighter, man. Every Sunday nighter feels like the very first one because it's special. All the lights are on, and everyone's watching. Your mother, your cousins, your friends, your friends you don't talk to anymore that you went to college with. Everyone's watching. And so that was always a special time. The whole world is watching. That was a special time for the playmakers to make a play because it was going to help you, whether you had personal goals of getting into the Pro Bowl and becoming a household name. I expect a big performance from Darius Leonard. I expect a big performance from DeForest Buckner. But I have to, this time around, I just have to side with the home team just because they're home. Hopefully I'm wrong.
Hell, that's the great thing about doing this is we all have our own views on things, and you present a good argument for your prediction. So I'm cool with it, man. Skylar and Kirsten, I haven't brought up their questions, any of them, and they are a Patreon supporter of mine. So before I jump out of here, I'm going to drop this out here real quick. It says, DQwell, first off, did you see the Buffalo Titans game?
Yes.
What did you think about how that game ended? And do you think the Colts have a path to be able to take the division back?
Ooh, watching that game, the Colts, Derrick Henry is a beast by himself, man. That guy, as the game unfolds, he gets stronger and faster and more difficult to tackle.
Oh, yeah.
I think the AFC South is very up for grabs to watch. That's tough. That's a tough question because the Titans are a tough out. Mm-hmm. When they lose, they barely lose because they rely heavily on Derrick Henry. And, the fact that they lost still gives – they won. I'm sorry. They won that game.
The Titans. The quarterback. Yeah, that was the dumbest direction that – I'm sorry. I'm going to cut in real quick.
Yeah.
If there's any direction –
I know what you're going to say.
For Josh Allen to run on a quarterback sneak, you do not go towards Simmons. That is the one guy you try to avoid at any cost. All right.
Right. Well, when they showed the replay, there was two guys in the A gap and B gap, but on the right, they only had an edge player.
Yeah.
He's a big quarterback. Yeah, A gap is right here exposed.
Uh-huh.
Go this way. I know it was probably called for him to sneak it to his left, but look at the bodies in front of you.
Yeah.
Go here. But it worked in Tennessee's favor. But this is going to be the AFC South division winner is going to come down to the very last week. It's going to come down to the very end. That's how I see it playing out. If the Colts can take care of business and win the games they're supposed to win, and this matchup against the Titans here in a few weeks is going to be very huge. You can't lose two games to a division opponent and win your division. It's not going to happen. So Yeah, that's going to be a good one. It's going to be a game. It's going to come down to the end, in my opinion.
Last questions because I had $1 donation in the tip jar. Says, does the weather affect tape jobs? Asking because Darius's ankle is mummified.
Yeah, no. So he'll probably after halftime he'll get a respat. He'll spat it. Yeah, because it becomes your foot. He has one foot that's taped, so that the water it just soaks and makes your foot feel that much more heavier. So yeah, it affects the way he plays, and it makes your surface a lot it makes it slippery.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm assuming that based on the conditions, he's definitely going to get it retaped at halftime, maybe even more than that, depending on the surface and how much it rains or doesn't rain. So it definitely affects you.
All right. Well, DQwell, I want to say thank you for taking your time out and doing this live stream with us so that we can answer some questions by the live viewers, and appreciate each and every one of you that were in the chat today to bring out some really great questions.
Yeah, they were really intelligent questions. I appreciate that.
All right. So, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Believe in Colts. On behalf of myself and DQwell Jackson, I want to say thanks so much. And until next time, go Colts.
Go Colts.